Hello and welcome back to Moffett Field. I'm going to do kind of a simple video today on kind of the top 10 operational tips and tricks that might help your game go faster and have less confusion during the game. We've played about 15 games so far, and these are just some of the things that we started doing, and they seem to work pretty well. So here we go. Number one is get a Lazy Susan. They're cheap, maybe $20 or less, and being able to spin the board makes life so much easier. If you have a round table, a square table, I don't think it matters. I just used a square Global 40 board that I had. I put it on top of that. But if you want to get fancy, I guess you could cut a piece of round plywood. I'll probably get a piece of round foam board at some place. But number one, get a Lazy Susan. Okay, number two, obviously, write clearly to define expectations on movement. And one thing we started doing early on was after the command number, we would write A for air, L for land, N for navy. Sometimes we put T for transports. Obviously, you could put your own nomenclature, but it just helps find the unit quickly and it avoids any confusion around what it is in case the number gets a little wiped off. It's another identifying indicator. So tip number two, write clearly and add some kind of coding for the unit type or the command type. Number three is, I guess it's kind of a question, is it okay to write the territory name instead of the territory number? We let it slide because sometimes you don't want to point to something or move units on the board because then your opponent will know that you're planning on doing something there. So sometimes the stacks are covering the territory number like B8 or G1. So if you know it's Germany, we allow writing the word Germany or writing South Africa, etc. So just something to think about in your game. Okay, the next one is kind of like being a banker in Monopoly. We have one designated person that runs the morale board, at least for the stress units from conquering countries. So we'll go around the board, look at the countries that change hands, read off the stress points. That banker will dole out the medals and the stress points, and then each individual player will go in and count up their losses and apply stress. So the banker keeps track of kind of the overall board, and then everyone else individually tracks their losses. Okay, so the next one should probably be number two or three. I really didn't prioritize well, but we started doing this early on. We flip over the purchased unit stacks so that it's very clear which stacks are existing and which ones are new purchases. Yes, there's the red factory token. Use that if that works well. Use both maybe, but we don't even use those red factory tokens now because it's so obvious which are the purchases. And if that red factory token falls off, sometimes it's confusing which one was the purchase and which stack was existing. Okay, this one might be a stretch for a top 10, but remember to flip over the territory cards when they're embattled. A lot of times I look down at my territory card stack and I'm like, oh, I forgot to turn that one over. It may not make a huge difference unless maybe it's an oil territory, but just something to remember. If anyone has any ideas on how to remember that, let me know. But I think we've got it down now, but at the beginning, it was a forgotten item in all the logistics that are required in the game. Okay, the next one's pretty simple. Just use the national flag cardboard tokens to mark the different stages of stress on the home stance circle. It just provides another visual reference when you look up there to see where different nations are in terms of stress. This next one, like several on the list, are just visual cues that help keep track of units, and this one is keeping that carrier flight token on the naval stacks that have carriers. So sometimes you look at the stack, it's hard to differentiate all the colors. If you put those carrier flight tokens on top of the stacks, you can immediately see how many planes there are how many carriers there are. I think the rules actually say to return them to a holding area or something, but we keep them on. Okay, number 9, maybe it's not that operational, and maybe it's more of a house rule, but secret battle boards. We were questioning why should the player that's first in the turn order be penalized with setting up the battle board first. So the game came with 2 battle boards, so we set them up side by side, and now each player pretty much does it in secret. Okay, number 10, this might be a little anticlimactic, but and you may have heard me say it in other videos. It's not really operational, but if you have the whiteboard move boards, just clean them when you're done. Otherwise, they tend to stain with the dry erase marker. So hope you enjoyed the video. And if you have any tips, I'm curious to hear as well. Thank you.